my pleasure to introduce this event today, discussing the outcome of the first RFI for the new generation of open and disaggregated BNG products being developed by the Fixed Broadband Project Group. We've got a packed agenda today with speakers from 5 leading operators who've been participating in the project. We'll start with an introduction led by our new PG co-chairs from Telefonica and Vodafone. They'll be setting the scene of the OpenBNG project, as well as explaining more of the background to the Fixed Broadband Project Group and some of the plans that the group has moving forwards. After that, we'll be hearing from the OpenBNG operators, who'll be sharing their reflections on the technology landscape for open and disaggregated BNG products. They'll be sharing their highlights of the different hardware and software solutions that are out there, and calling out some of the key movements that are happening in the industry at the moment. Then we'll be hearing about the OpenBNG RFI. The operators will be talking about how they've run the process, what they were looking for, and finally announcing their supplier shortlist. And to finish up with, we'll be sharing some information about what comes next, taking questions from the audience. There's a chat function to the right of your screen, and please use it to discuss and raise any questions as we're going along, and we'll try to address them for you. So, to kick things off, our first speakers are the co-chairs for our new Fixed Broadband Project Group. We have Bruno Cornaglia, who is Fixed Access Senior Manager from Vodafone, and we have Rafa Canto, who is Transport Network Senior Manager from Telefonica. Over to you guys.
So thanks, Andy. First of all, let me express that I'm honored to have been given the opportunity to co-chair this Fixed Broadband Product Group on behalf of Telefonica, alongside Bruno as co-chair, as you as technical lead. So it's a real pleasure to be able to start this journey with you guys and the rest of the participant members in the PG. I've been in the telecom industry for more than 20 years, most of my career in Telefonica, in different positions related to network technology, optical communications, fixed access and mobile access, and also transport and IP. So currently, I'm responsible for innovation activities in transport and IP area in Telefonica's CTIO office that include the open and disaggregated networks initiatives in this field. At Telefonica, openness is a key pillar of transformation that we apply at every network segment. So, and the new project group covers an important part of these networks.
Thanks, Rafa. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bruno Cornaglia, and I am a fixed access senior manager in Vodafone, and also as distinguished engineer. My main role today is to manage the roadmap and evolution for the entire access domain, including copper, fiber, and also cable. And I'm also participating to standard bodies, and in particular, I am the chairman of the SDN and NV group in Broadband Forum. I started my activity in the 90s in the research center of Telecom Italia, at that time Excel, and where I managed a lot of projects related to microwave and satellite. Then I moved at the beginning of the 2000 in Vodafone. At that time was Omnitel in Italy, where I managed the creation of new microwave networks, both point-to-point and point-to-multipoint. In 2005, I moved to Vodafone Group, where I started to lead the group of innovation for microwave, and we created altogether with the concept of the microwave Ethernet with flexible modulation, coding and modulation. And then I moved to fixed access and team. And then since then, I worked in a lot of stuff in terms of innovation, including NG.2 trials, then virtualization of the network as today. So let's move to what are the main goals of TIP. The TIP has the main goal to disaggregate all the entire access, the entire network, including mobile with the Open RAN, where we can disaggregate small cells and macro, and also the macro sites, created, so that means disaggregated CU, DU, and NU. Then we have also disaggregation to introduce disaggregation in mobile backhauling, in particular in cell-side routers, in the core network of the mobile, in the transport, both in optical and packet transport, including IP MPLS. We have also a team on the disaggregation of the access point, that is Wi-Fi. But today we still have one piece that is missing, that is fixed broadband. Next slide, please. The fixed broadband has the same goal of the other groups, that is to disaggregate the fixed access network and to use as much as possible white box solution as hardware. This is for both access technologies, that is OLT, and also for the broadband gateway with the OpenBNG project that we will see more in details later on. The goal is to obviously to disaggregate all the technologies by using open interfaces. Obviously that we want to reuse existing standards that are already available, and if there are some gaps, to contribute in order to close these gaps in the standard. And the main goal that we have at the end is to create an open and interoperable environment where each operator can put and each piece together in order to create its own network. This means that to do that, we need to have modularity. That means that we can have multiple modules, and each operator can select the combination of them in order to create its own network and to have its own customization. Sustainability. We don't want to have a closed network, but we want a really open network that is able to evolve in the future and to create differentiation and innovation for each operator. Simplicity. This combination anyhow should be simple in order to be managed easily by the network operator and to reduce the cost of maintenance of the network. All these things means to be a flexible network. This means to have a really best of breed solution and to accelerate innovation. In summary, if you are interested to participate to this group, please contact us, and we will be happy to be in touch and to have also your view in this. Let me hand over the floor to Rafa, that will deliver more information about the OpenBNG project.
Thanks, Bruno. We are excited with the announcement today, since OpenBNG is the first project launched by the new fixed broadband group. OpenBNG is a next-generation BNG that builds upon existing work carried by TPOPT project group for the IP/MPLS functionality, the time sync, or the SCM from our needs. And it extends those functionalities with the additional ones required for a BNG. It's built on 3 different pillars, so it's open. It's built upon open standard-based APIs to improve interoperability and to help to automate the network and to deploy and combine different pieces from different suppliers whenever they are available. It's disaggregated. It makes sure that hardware and software are decoupled, and it permits that each actor in the value chain leverages on their strengths and participates whenever they provide more value. It also speeds up innovation with new players that may have very interesting and differential proposals in specific parts of the solution. And at the end of the day, the objective is to increase the liberty of choice for the operator and to enable a healthy and diverse ecosystem. And finally, it's modular. Modularity is all about flexibility in how to combine the different functional blocks and pieces to create a specific use case for an operator. This is done by, on the one hand, to create a small number of hardware configuration that meets the most common deployment operator scenarios in an operator, and with different software packages that map to the different operator use cases. So next slide, please. We started the journey some time ago, all of us with our own initiatives in the different fora that were promoting open and disaggregated networks. You know, those fora, ONF, OCP, BBF, or TIP, many others. So what did really trigger this initiative for us is that no matter the difference among our requirements, topologies, or architectures, we share the common need for a new approach in which we could move from our current monoliths with their own integration processes towards an open modular network architecture for the most complex node that we have in our IP MPLS network, the BNG. Also, one clear aspect that we had from the beginning is that we did not want to create another standard. SDOs and for already working on them are doing a very good job at it, and OpenBNG just elaborating on that work. The target was to create an open and collaborative environment for technology creation. A place that permitted us to put in the same table operator needs and the industry to define and develop and build carrier-grade products able to be commercialized and to be deployed in our networks. And for that, TIP is an excellent choice. So with that in mind, we published a white paper and started the project in TIP in October 2020 with the 5 operators that are today in this webinar. We work with a large community of suppliers that has helped us along the way to shape, to refine, and to enrich all the requirements of the OpenBNG. So finally, in July, we launched the RFI that we will be telling you about today. But let me emphasize that although we are 5 operators here in this webinar, this is a wide industry collaboration. And I thank all the participants in it. So, but before going to this RFI announcement and all the details that you will see afterwards, I will leave the floor to Bruno that will be providing some updates on the activities that will start shortly in 2022 in the PG for fixed access technologies.
Thanks, Rafa. In the fixed broadband project group, we want to create another stream in order to do the same activity that we did for OpenBNG, also for fixed access, in particular for the OLT, for fiber accesses. The goal is the same, to reuse existing white box solutions and to support any combination of hardware and software in order to let me say, increase the commercial competition, and also to add a modularized software stack that will help the operator to differentiate its services and also to create new revenue possibilities. This was to be done by the use, as already OpenBNG did, to reuse existing standard, because we want to have open and interoperable interfaces. We can use what already exists in different fora, like the disaggregated OLT, the virtual OMCI, in order to simplify, improve the interworking between ONTs and OLTs, to reuse all the existing standardized northbound interfaces, because they will help the introduction of, will add and reduce the cost of the introduction of the new network elements in our network, because we can reuse existing controller management and control for managing the network, and also for service activation and the creation for all elements, for example, the zero touch provisionings. That's obvious that all these goals can be created if we will be able to consider all the use cases that each operator has, in order to have a really a flexible network that will help to be to meet the TIP goals. Let me say that I already mentioned flexibility, and an environment for future evolution and innovation. The project hasn't started yet. The goal is to start the requirement development process in January 22, and then in few months is to produce the technical requirements. Thank you very much, and let me hand over the floor to Andy.
Thanks to Bruno and Rafa, and we're all super excited to have you both leading this new group, and your company is playing such an important role. We heard Rafa talking just now about the history of the OpenBNG project. So now we're going to take a look at what kinds of OpenBNG hardware and software solutions are out there in the market. Taking us through this next section, we have Paul Gunning from BT and Rosario Persico from TIM. Take it away, Paul.
Thank you, Andy. Well, hardware unsurprisingly underpins the TIP OpenBNG. And this is a simple representation of, a typical white box or an open white box. What you will see is that, well, it's got the famous pizza box, 1RU, 2RU, modular, common form factor that it shares with compute servers. It's rackable, so it can be put into a rack, and it can have different options, whether it's a leaf or a spine switch, because the rack can become effectively what looks like a traditional chassis. You'll notice here that we have support for timing. Now, this is particularly important for the distributed BNG, where several hundred might be pushed out closer to the metro and access edge of our network. And there may be requirements for downstream dissemination of timing, 1588 and so on. We have a variety of port speeds. So it seems here that this white box is scaling from 1 gigabit up to 400 gigabit. That's not quite the case. What you'll see a diversity of different, if you like, solutions. Some will be focused on 1, 10, 25, 50, 100 gig. Others will be more focused on, 50, 100, 400 gig. So a diversity of solutions in terms of the port speeds. There will be multiple chipset options, and I'll talk about them in the next slide. I think that'll be quite interesting, but several combinations are possible, as you'll see, again, because of the diversity of the supply chain, the diversity of suppliers who've responded and been shortlisted by TIP and the OpenBNG, and multiple hardware configurations. Again, this underlines the diverse supply. You can go to lots of different vendors, ODM vendors, and so on. And actually, Mario at Deutsche Telekom will expand on some of these points a little bit later. So, with that in mind, let's open the white box. So when we look inside it on the left-hand side, what I want to underline is the globally diverse supply chain. This time around, the original design manufacturers have kind of stepped out from behind the OEMs and stepped forward. And I think that's a significant, it's a significant news, but also I would say that the standard form factor is common to all of them. They may have slightly different ways of doing it. They may outfit with slightly different power supply units, fans, LEDs, baseboard management controllers, but effectively they're all of a similar form factor. I think on the right-hand side is something that is, really quite interesting, and that's the multiple chipset suppliers who, will form part of the motherboard. And let me call out two in particular here, and I'll expand on them a little bit later. We've got Broadcom, okay, who we kind of know quite well. They've been around for a long time. And we've got Intel, who've equally been around for a long time, more in the CPU space, but now starting to move into I would call it the networking space with Gutso. But we also anticipate that there will be other merchant silicon ASIC vendors in the future. So I would say watch this space. If we go to the next slide, please, Andy. So as I say, many solutions, and I suppose they're summarized by three architectures. On the left-hand side, we have scale, and you're looking here probably at something like deep buffered Broadcom DNX type of ASICs. They've been around for 2 decades. Used to be June Networks, moved into Broadcom, but notable for packet processing and traffic management combined. So things like HQAS is possible there. I would say that in the middle there we have what I would call the FPGA and ASIC solution. This is now really what Intel moving into this space. So Intel, as we said, are synonymous with CPUs, but in 2019 they bought Barefoot and the Tofino ASIC, and then back in 2014 they bought Altera with the FPGAs, And now you will see solutions that Rafa will talk about later, which kind of combines those in a pizza box. And I think that's quite exciting because it has extensibility and it has flexibility beyond BNG. Right. And then on the right hand side, we have the smart NICs, and they're potentially the most flexible. So I think this is one to watch very, very closely, as it can transform, if you like, generic servers into compelling solutions for smaller distributed deployments. But we need to understand a little bit more about the power consumption and how the software integration will work with that. So on the left-hand side, greater bandwidth scale. On the right-hand side, greater flexibility. Okay, so like Hamlet, without the prince, hardware is of no use without software. With that in mind, I'd like to hand over to Rosaria at Telecom Italia to describe the software that will complement and exploit the hardware that I've just outlined. Rosaria.
Thank you, Paul. So Paul has shown us a picture of the hardware ecosystem that we are exploring, and I'm going to make a picture of the software ecosystem. A general statement here is that OpenBNG is attracting interest from a broad range of software suppliers. First in the list, of course, are BNG vendors who already have the subscriber management features developed, and now they are looking to enhance the capabilities of their products to offer a true multi-service BNG. Second in the list are traditional IP/MPLS players, especially those that are used to develop software on merchant silicon, and that are standing out against the data center software providers. And here we have to report this is a growing ecosystem with players that are going to be very well established in the disaggregation market of cell-site gateway routers, aggregation routers, and even in the core routers. Thanks to their experience and their commercial relationship with merchant silicon providers, these vendors are in a good position, in our opinion, to enhance their software and upsell OpenBNG software. Last but not least, in the ecosystem, we found several cloud-native experts that are looking to enable operators to push BNG into the cloud, at least control plane, BNG control plane, and sometimes even user plane. These vendors are interesting because they can bring ideas for scalable and flexible solutions. About this category of vendors, one interesting point which came out from industry is that there are concrete proposals to have under the same DBNG control plane both software and hardware-based user planes, which enables the operators to have both distributed small nodes and centralized bigger nodes under the same control. And even if in this list they are not explicitly mentioned, I would spend some words about vendors bringing in their experience with mobile core. And those vendors are willing to share their value with the other parties to speed up maybe a co-development of a disaggregated BNG solution. So I think these kind of vendors are pioneer in this journey, where also wireless wireline convergence may be the next milestone. In conclusion, about software suppliers, we can say that while the core of what they are building is the same, each of them brings something different. And this is good for two reasons: because it leaves room for innovation, and because it enables interesting partnerships where each supplier can play to their strengths. Next slide, please. Thanks, Andy. Okay, about software solutions, we observed a mix of different software architectures. Some, we have to admit, are still based on virtual machines. But generally speaking, suppliers have intentions to move away from VNF architectures, and they want to move towards modern container-based architecture. And we also saw some cloud-native solutions already at good stage of development. And this is very positive sign because these solutions are future-proof and they can evolve over time like our needs. In terms of deployment architectures, we have seen in the industry are emerging both BNG solutions running on white box hardware as a standalone nodes, as well as BNG solutions based on CAPs. And regarding these, it was amazing for us to see how BBF TR459 standard has become the reference standard for many disaggregated solutions. And I'm also impressed about how many players are tracking the evolution of the specifications to upgrade their products in short time. Software-based on CAPs can, of course, since now support the geographical separation of control plane and user plane. However, nothing prevents from running control plane features locally on the box. We think that the availability of these many CAPS solutions by many new entrants will lead to increased interoperability between multiple vendors, which for us is an important goal that we believe not only give value to the work being done in BBF by some of us, but will also concretely widen the BNG market. I think this is the picture about the software ecosystem that we have seen from the RFI, and I'll hand over to Andy now. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosaria, and to Paul as well. You gave us a great overview of the technology components of OpenBNG, the hardware and the software. So now let's hear about the OpenBNG RFI. Talking us through this next section, we have Mario Kind from DT, we have Ayman Hamza from Vodafone, and we have Rafael Lopez from Telefonica. So first off, we're going to hand over to Mario, who's going to introduce some of the background to the RFI. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, and hello to everybody on the screens. So as mentioned, I'm starting here on the RFI with some background and our targets for this. So the first thing was that we as operators need to make a contribution to the community to give a complete set of what we really want from it, what an OpenBNG should be. So we have compiled these RFIs also a part of our contribution to vendors to understand clearly what it is. That is it. That is the first thing. The second, that is that we want to understand where we are in terms of supplier products. What is available in terms of hardware? What is available in terms of software? How does this work together? What is the actual maturity of all these products? Who is developing with who and integrating with who? And the other thing, and that is clear, that we understand that most of these things are also attracting new players, so that we want to see how are they progressing, how are their roadmaps. This is how where are they actually, and open up the dialogue with them on where to go. Last but not least, and that's the third major thing, is to really understand after the RFI, where are we as a community, as an OpenBNG community, where are we going to, what are maybe required next steps, and what do we have to contribute or adjust in order to progress here. Starting from this background, I'm going on the next slide into a little more detail on what we are specifically looking for. So Paul already mentioned and introduced to you all these different hardware options that we have, and that is that we are clearly looking into white box hardware. But on top of that, we are looking into several software parts, and not all of them at the same time, and I'll come back to this in a second. So the major and most important package is the routing software package, as it is not only dealing with routing, so any BNG always have to have a routing stack, but it's also including all the stuff around the day-to-day operation. What are security requirements? What needs to be there? What are tools that we expect to manage the BNGs and the software and hardware stacks? What are OEM tools? And on the other side, also, what are the interfaces? What are the protocols? What are the data models that we are expecting needs to be there on a BNG? The second big block is the BNG software package, which deals really with anything which is needed to terminate subscribers and enable them to get access to the network. It includes all these stuff around authorization, authentication, and also accounting. It includes QoS. It includes all the mechanics on the data plane that we need to have to enable them. And last but not least, also to fulfill our regulatory requirements like legal intercept. The third package, that is what Rosario already introduced to you, is about the CAPS part, and we understand this is something new, but we wanted to see how and where are we also with fees, and where are we going to. And depending on deployments, we have a fourth package, that is the provider edge software package, which deals with things which are typically attributed more to business customers, with all the VPN stuff, with layer 2, layer 3, Ethernet VPNs, etc. Things that many operators need depending on their use case. And that brings us already also to the lower part of this slide, and that is the different deployment options that we are looking for. The full functional OpenBNG is including all of these software packages beside the CAPS BNG. This is typically a deployment of operators who need to aggregate access nodes on one hand side, who have a more distributed architecture where the BNG is located, etc. That's why it also includes interfaces from 1 to 100G. But importantly, this typically also hosts business customer service. In contrast, the service-only BNG is something which is more in the network located and includes typically only the BNG features itself without the full stack, including, for example, provider edge stuff. It's Last but not least, we have the CAPS-enabled OpenBNG, and that is the third deployment option that Rosario already introduced to you. So I have set the scene, and now I hand over to Ayman to explain to you the process of the RFI and present results.
Thank you, Mario. Well, as a process of the RFI that we have been engaged in as 5 operators, BT, Vodafone, Telefonica, Telecom Italia, and Deutsche Telekom, we all together have been jointly proceeding with this RFI in July this year. Last year. And we have received about 1,800 technical requirements gathered from each party participating in this RFI from different operators. And we have received the suppliers Q&A in August, and some initial responses as well from the suppliers. Then we have opened the evaluation to any supplier who can participate in this RFI. In October, we have evaluated the vendor responses, and in September, we have answered all the suppliers' questions, and we have starting the evaluation of the technical requirement and the technical function. In November this year, we have received all the answers and evaluated all of them. We evaluated around 15,000 answers, and we have shortlisted the required vendor who can actually matching our requirements in this RFI. Next slide, please. As a statistics for this RFI, we have seen a promising figure about the fully compliant answers. About 80% of the answers were fully compliant. And this is very promising and very encouraging figure for a new technology. However, most of the suppliers are still considering dependencies on the roadmap features. And this is very understandable because it's a new technology. However, the good thing about this is that this roadmap was a foreseeable future roadmap, which means a roadmap for 2022. Very few features are in a long-term are achievable in a long-term roadmap, which is beyond 2022. Last but not least, to the right-hand side of the slide, those are the software packages that Mario, my colleague, explained. The story is different across various packages. Most of the vendors have achieved compliant answers for routing and switching software packages, and less than the routing and switching software packages were the BNG software package, and then the IP/MPLS PE software package, and at last, the BNG CUPS software package. As an observation from all of this, we see many suppliers in the market can fulfill the requirements for OpenBNG products right now, which means we can already have something to test after the evaluation of the RFI and shortlisting the required suppliers or the compliant suppliers, actually. And we are very excited to realize that those vendors and suppliers have their own roadmap objectives set it up, and we can help them to build a stronger ecosystem for an OpenBNG product. With that, I hand it over to Rafael Lopez. Rafa?
Okay, thank you, Ayman. Let me first provide you some insight on how we have shortlisted the vendors taking part in this RFI. From the very beginning, we had the objective of selecting the most promising technology that could be taken to the lab next year. And so for that purpose, with that objective in mind, we have used three criteria in order to shortlist the vendors taking part in the RFI, so that those shortlisted must meet these three criteria, which are, well, first of all, openness and disaggregation. We absolutely believe that OpenBNG needs to be open, and we need to mix and match hardware and software coming from different suppliers. Unfortunately, we had several suppliers embracing this philosophy. So this imposes that the hardware solutions must be able to support different nodes running on top of the hardware, and being capable of installation, making use of the ONI installation procedures and zero-touch procedures. And also that the software solutions must be capable of supporting a variety of hardware platforms. Second pillar for shortlisting has been selecting solutions that are fit for our purpose. The products that we have selected are meeting our technical requirements by supporting a broad feature set and being capable of being deployed as a BNG. It couldn't be any other way. Right now, we are not differentiating among the different solutions according to the use case they support, because we have come up with a set of solutions that they can target potentially they can target any of the OpenBNG use cases that Mario was commenting before. Probably this will change over time, and we would expect some specializations from the different vendors, either targeting a full functionality use case or a service only, or a OpenBNG use case. And last but not least, the third pillar for shortlisting has been the readiness for testing. We have been looking for solutions that we could take into the lab in the first half of next year. So that means that some level of hardware and software integration has already been completed or is about to. And we do not only want to take the solutions into the lab next year, we would like to see them exit the lab next year and be ready for commercial deployment. Well, we realize this is very challenging, but we are very positive, and we hope that the testing will be successful, and we will be at that point. So taking into account these three pillars, all of the vendors that have made it to the short list, they are meeting these three criteria. There are other vendors that are what we regard as ones to watch, that are meeting one or two of these criteria, but not all of three. But anyway, we think they could have a promising solution in the future or in later stages of the project. We hope to keep working with them in the OpenBNG. So if now we move on to the to present the results of the RFI shortlist. Well, first, let me underline that the shortlist is providing no ranking among the vendors in the shortlist. All of the solutions in the shortlist are fit for our purposes of testing and trialing, but we are not providing any ranking among them, or we are not expressing any preference for any of them. Also, I would like to thank all of the suppliers taking part in the RFI for their active participation and their willingness to collaborate with us very openly. Really, we are very glad for the support we got from the industry, and we really appreciate it. But now we can start maybe with the ones to watch category. That, as I was mentioning before, those vendors that are not meeting the three criteria, just one or two of the criteria I expressed before, but we think they are promising solutions to watch for in the future. But if we go to the actual shortlist, starting with hardware, our shortlist for hardware suppliers consists of APS Networks, Delta, EdgeCore, and UFI Space. And regarding software, the list of software suppliers selected has been Altran, Benu Networks, Casa Systems, and RT-Brick. Again, as I said before, I want to thank, and I think on behalf of all of my OpenBNG colleagues here, to all of the vendors taking part in this RFI, and we hope to see more of you in the future. So now handing back to Andy.
Thank you, Rafa. And thanks to all of our speakers. Was even better than the Oscars, I think. Again, on behalf of all of the operators, I hope you found the content we shared today very useful and interesting. And before we hand over to questions, I just want to give an update about what comes next for the project. And actually, before we get into that, I just want to come back to some of the points that Rafa and Bruno made in the introduction that we heard from them at the top of the hour. We only had a small group of operators here today, but actually the entire community is much larger, made up of operators, but also hardware suppliers, software suppliers, chipset builders, and many other partners as well. As we heard from Paul earlier, we're all spread all across the globe, but we all share a common vision of a more open, disaggregated, and interoperable future for fixed broadband networks. As we heard from Rosario earlier, there's a diversity of different technology solutions out there, and there's also a diversity of opinions about how those technologies should be deployed. So despite the ongoing COVID situation, it's been very difficult to meet sometimes. We've had to find the best ways of communicating, the best ways of working together, so that we can work through those differences of opinion, that diversity of opinion, and make progress towards our common goal. We heard Mario and Ayman talking earlier about all of the work that's been involved throughout the RFI. The RFI itself has been a huge undertaking for the entire community. 1,800 requirements from the operators, 15,000 responses from the suppliers, and each one of them checked multiple times. But as we saw just now in the shortlist from RAFA, it's uncovered some super promising and exciting products that are already out there in the market. So there's a lot of work still to do, and we're happy to see what the future can bring. That future starts next week, and we're going to be publishing the detailed technical requirements which were produced by the operators. This is the same set of requirements that the suppliers have been responding to, and the 1,800 detailed technical requirements described by Ayman earlier. This document will be released for review by the Fixed Broadband Project Group. And for those of you who have joined the project group, we look forward to receiving your feedback and incorporating that in the next few weeks prior to finalization, approval, and publication. Once that review has been completed, we will be opening the requirements compliance window for suppliers. As with the RFI, this will be an open process, open to all TIP members in good standing. The suppliers who are full-tier TIP participants can submit their proposals to be reviewed by the project group. And if those proposals are compliant with the requirements, then those supplier products can be listed on TIP Exchange with the requirements compliant ribbon. Meanwhile, as we move through Q1, we'll be developing our test plans for OpenBNG. We heard Rafa and a number of our other speakers earlier talking about the plans to test solutions next year. And we'll be looking to start our testing and validation of our first OpenBNG products in operator labs later in H1 next year, and bringing the full TIP test and validation framework to bear to help the industry track our progress as we go along. So there's lots still to come from OpenBNG, and stay tuned through 2022 for more. Zooming back out, back to where we started, just one final reminder. OpenBNG is part of the new Fixed Broadband Project Group. So if you're an operator who is building fixed broadband networks and want to know more about how openness and disaggregation can help you build a more flexible, efficient, and cost-effective network, or whether you're a supplier who's looking to build products for those operators and looking to connect with them to understand their use cases and requirements in more detail, please join us. The project group work will be formally kicking off next week with our call for participation. So please join the project group. You can do that on the TIP website, or get in contact with myself or one of my colleagues here today to find out more. So with all that said, I would like to thank our speakers here again today. We had from Vodafone, Ayman and Bruno, from Deutsche Telekom, Mario, from BT, we had Paul, from Telefonica, we had Rafa and Rafael, and from TIM, Rosario. I'd also like to thank and congratulate our shortlisted suppliers and hand things over to questions from the audience. Let's start off. I see a few questions in the window. Let's start with a question. Where will the BNG lab be? So let me just start as you can imagine, the past few months have been extremely busy with an RFI. So the planning for the testing activities will begin during in January of next year, and the operators are going to be collaborating on testing, trying to share learnings and work together. But let's hear from some of the operators who can explain how some of that's going to work. Maybe Rosario, we can start with you.
Sure. I think that we operators, of course, most of us are willing to host testing of the OpenBNG platforms, but each of us will probably choose the solutions that best matches the needs of ourselves. So maybe in one lab, it will be preferred one solution. In another lab, it will be preferred maybe a solution that is different, but is more. It matches more the needs of the particular operator that hosts the test. I think that what should be very clear is that the results of the testing will be shared among us. Of course, it will be shared only among us, not externally. And this will enhance the knowledge that each of the operators will get at the end of the process.
Great. Any more comments? Maybe Paul, I don't know if you've got thoughts and involvement from BT.
Yeah, so I just agree with Rosario. We'll all take away our particular solutions. We'll bring them into the lab. We'll use our test kit that we already have, to our test scripts in place. We'll also speak to our colleagues, I would say, in the front line. So in our network testing labs, whereby they would take what's in the live network, and anytime there's an upgrade, they would test it first before putting it into the wild. So they have test scripts as well, and we would hope to take on board some of those test scripts to try and make it a bit more fit for purpose. Also, I would say, we'll be working, with these vendors who've been selected to try and, help them along and say, this is an area that maybe you need to focus a bit more on. So it's a collaborative effort, I think, across us all, and also with the vendors, both software and hardware.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Rosario. I can see another question. It says, among the hardware platforms, also SmartNICs at this stage. I don't know, Ayman, if you want to take this one.
Yes. The question about from APS, you mean, Andy?
So the question reads, among the hardware platforms, also SmartNICs at this stage?
No, we are at they are on the watch list, actually.
Okay.
Yes. So we are for SmartNICs, they are in the watch list, and we are happy to work with them in the future. In order to participate in further testing in the future.
Okay, that's great. We have a question about whether the RFI is available for reading, and I guess just to so the plan is that we'll be publishing the detailed technical requirements, which are the same requirements that we use to initiate the RFI. The RFI responses themselves are it's a confidential tender process run by these operators on the call today. So I don't think we'll be publishing the detailed findings or any vendor specifics that were provided as part of the RFI. But I hope that's answering the question. But I think stay tuned for the detailed technical requirements that will be coming out in the next week or so. So what other questions do we have? Another question on testing. We have how will we be deciding which specific combination of vendors are going to be tested? I don't know, Rafa, if you want to lead off with this one.
Yes, well, as you mentioned before, still we have been very busy with the analysis of the RFI responses. Well, some of the vendors are, let's say, getting the final confirmation today that they are being shortlisted. So I think this is something we still have to work out and see how the plans for integration, how it goes. And so for sure, we would be glad to have as many as possible solutions being tested. But we have to be pragmatic as well and just select the ones that make more sense, that add more value, let's say, to the process at any time.
Great. Thanks, Rafael. And we have an interesting question here, I think. So, are we expecting that the shortlisted softwares are going to be ported onto all of the shortlisted hardwares? So I guess speaking to how much mix and match are people really expecting to do?
Okay.
Rosario, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, this is not an easy question. It depends, of course, even if, since we are at an early stage of this mix and match possibility, of course, there are vendors, software vendors that have already worked with a set of hardware vendors and vice versa. Some are in hardware can maybe has done already some tests with the different software vendors. So of course we give priorities. We will give priority to the combination that somehow have been already tested and they are confident that can run together, can run integrated. But our objective is to widen the list of the set of hardware that can be used with the given software and vice versa. Within among the combinations, we are also interested in seeing in CAPS environment different vendors working, one providing the control plane and the other providing the user plane. It will be very interesting to see also this kind of interoperability.
Any more for this question? I know everybody's got a slightly different plans and a different interpretation of mix and match, but I thought it was a good answer. Okay. So we have time for a couple more questions. I'm conscious probably a number of our viewers are going to be preparing for the Broadband Forum meeting, which I guess convenes in 2 minutes. So let's work through some of these quite quickly. We had a question about how important was 5G AGF in this RFI, and how much is it expected to be part of the upcoming tests in 2022? This may not be a 2-minute question to answer, but I know some of our operators are considering wireless wireline convergence, AGF, as part of strategy in the longer term. Does anyone want to give some words on that?
I have to take this, Andy. I'm sorry, I don't give much room to the other fellows. But since it's within the team strategy to medium term, let's say, team strategy to embrace wireless wireline convergence, I think I have to give an answer here. Well, I think that it was too early for this RFI to consider also the evolution of the BNG solution towards AGF, but surely we think that we might need maybe multifunction nodes, multifunction solution that will be able to support both BNG and AGF to allow the transition from the current situation where the core networks are separated to the target situation where there will be one core network for wireline and wireless users. So I think this will be surely a next step, because of course also for AGF we will be pursuing the disaggregation. Surely.
Great. Good to hear. And thank you for, I think we made a short answer from a long question with that one. So we're out of time. We have a few more questions coming through. I know some people will have to drop off. Let's try and get a few more. I know Rosario is heading straight into BBF. But let's try and address the questions that we still have on the screen. We have a question about energy efficiency and whether there are any energy topics in the RFI that were asked, like the hardware efficiency or zero load, zero emissions. I know this is an area of interest and research for many of the operators on the call. Do we have anybody who can lend a few words to that section?
So, I mean, Andy, I'll maybe respond and say that, yeah, it's really coming to the fore. I mean, internally within BT, this has come onto the agenda in some of the work we're doing in the future in terms of research. That, in the past it was things like, throughput, bisection bandwidths and things like that. Now energy is becoming absolutely crucial. And in a lot of our asks from our business units, they're basically adding on, energy, tell us about energy. And there isn't a requirement in BT, I think, to go, by 2030 to be zero carbon and things like that. So energy is becoming increasingly important, I would say. But I'm not sure if it was explicitly addressed in the RFI.
I know, Mario, we lost you there for a while. I think your laptop crashed. I'm not sure if you had any thoughts you wanted to share around energy efficiency and considerations.
Yep. So definitely for DT, same thing as for BT. Energy efficiency becomes very, very important for us. I think we have explicitly asked about the energy efficiency of the power supplies. And for me, I will definitely have tests included in the lab to see how is the energy consumption going in different load scenarios and different featured scenarios. Yes, so no answer right now. Maybe we will check that in the lab.
I think for sure there's a long list of things for, and I think that's a really good point. Like the lab testing next year is as much about validating the technology solutions as it is understanding them. And some of the non-functional observations are going to be as valuable, if not more, than the testing and validating. Can I establish a 100,000 PVPoE sessions kind of thing? I think there's going to be some interesting findings coming up. I see questions are still coming through. I want to be respectful of people's calendars, so let's answer a couple more, and then I think people are always welcome to get in touch via email or LinkedIn or whatever mechanism most appropriate with myself or the speakers here today. This is we're excited to be able to engage directly with the people in the audience today. So let's ask a question about, you show us the software availability, comparing it with the roadmap. What about the hardware availability, including new chipsets and ASIC/FPGA availability?
I can take this question, Andy. Well, we are aware that there are some hardware piece or components of the solution are still not available in the market right now. However, the supplier who will use these components in his proposed solution and propose this as a solution in the RFI as a response, as long as he explained very well the capabilities, the features of this hardware component, and give us a robust date in the roadmap of its availability, then we have, of course, considered this as a valid solution from his side. And of course, we have regarded him positively after this exact answer from him. So we consider this as a valid solution and a valid response from his side in this RFI.
Good. Thanks, Simon. So I think we are officially out of time now. I see there's two final questions come through about the RFI and what comes next. So let me just try and address these super quickly and directly. I think that there was a question about the whether we'll be publishing the shortlist on the TIP website. So there will be an announcement. There'll be a blog post coming out in the near future announcing the shortlist. The actual suppliers, as I said earlier, will be eligible to submit their proposals to TIP through the test and validation framework and to be awarded the requirements compliant ribbon. And then those suppliers and their products can be listed on TIP Exchange. So for those of you who are familiar with TIP, you'll know TIP Exchange is the sort of marketplace for open and disaggregated technologies. So whether you're a supplier looking to list products or you're an operator looking to understand which products are compliant with the OpenBNG requirements, TIP Exchange will be the place to do that, and we'll be opening that window up in the new year. There was a second question about sort of what, apart from the shortlisted suppliers now, what happens for new suppliers in 2022? And I think this is a really great one to finish with. This is the first step on a long road. There's a lot of work still to do, and I think we're going to see a lot more solutions coming out in the future. We've seen some super promising things, both from some shortlisted suppliers who are meeting a lot of the requirements today, and we're going to be able to test next year, through some suppliers which are exciting to watch, and we're looking forward to furthering discussions and bringing them into the lab later on, and suppliers who the products don't exist yet, the suppliers don't exist yet. This is a continual process. We're looking forward to carrying on working with the industry, and as new OpenBNG products emerge, working with suppliers in the same way as we have been with all of the suppliers over 2021, in 2022 and beyond, to help build a more diverse, healthy ecosystem of open and disaggregated BNG products. And with that, I'll leave it. I don't know if any of the other operators have any more they want to add on that.
No, you said it quite right. I mean, of course, we will welcome more to jump in. So we will be glad.
I think the other thing that's quite interesting, and Andy, you alluded to it earlier, is that none of us have ever physically met. So we're looking forward to post-COVID time when we can all sit down somewhere, some occasion for a glass of wine together.
We definitely can't wait for that. The OpenBNG, the non-virtual Christmas party, virtual Christmas party, we have to see.
Yeah. Excellent. So thanks once again to all of our speakers, to Ayman, to Paul, to Mario, to Rafael, to Rosaria, to Bruno, and to Rafa. And to all of our audience today. We hope it's been useful. To the suppliers who responded to the RFI, and congratulations again to the suppliers who've been shortlisted. And have a very happy Thursday, and we hope to see you again soon.